It started with a missing shipment, then 2, then 7. Rations meant for remote military outposts never arrived. No explanation, no accountability, just silence. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, stationed at the northern corridor, noticed first. His men were losing weight. Morale was sinking. Radios crackled with static. And when he asked Central Command for answers, they replied, "Check your inventory again, Captain. Maybe you misplaced it." As if crates of rice and ammo had just walked away. At first, he thought it was a mistake, so he documented everything. Signed forms, dates, vehicle manifests, delivery schedules. He sent them through official channels. No response. Then one day, a friendly driver pulled him aside and whispered, "They told me not to deliver to your sector anymore. Said it was compromised." Compromised? What did that even mean? Back at headquarters, he confronted the regional logistics officer, a slick man with polished boots and an oily smile. "If you can't manage your own supplies, Captain," the man said, sipping tea, "perhaps you're not ready for command." The others in the room chuckled. One even added, "Don't worry. Maybe one day you'll understand how the system really works." Traoré said nothing. He simply stood, saluted, and walked out. But something had shifted in his chest. It wasn't anger. It was purpose. Within weeks, his men were hunting their own meat, purifying river water, patching gear with thread. But they held their line. Because Traoré did. Because every morning he told them, "They may forget us. We will not forget who we serve." Still behind closed doors, officers mocked him. Captain Wilderness, the jungle commander. Let him play survival games. They laughed. They thought silence could bury the truth. They were wrong. Traoré wasn't just documenting anymore. He was preparing, and one day soon, he would speak. Not with words, but with proof. The missing crates had serial numbers, and Traoré still had the manifests. While others cursed the jungle, he went back to the numbers, and then to the men. He asked each driver who'd ever delivered supplies to the northern corridor. Most refused to speak, but one, older and limping from a long-healed wound, finally pulled him aside. "Captain, some of those trucks never left the central depot." That night, Traoré rode alone to Depot 6. No weapon, no uniform, just a notebook and a borrowed motorcycle. The guards recognized him and didn't stop him. They thought he was lost or desperate. But he walked straight to Warehouse C. Inside, stacked in perfect rows, were unopened crates with his unit's markings. Rice, med kits, ammunition, dusty, unused, but not stolen, because they were still in Army hands. He took photos, not just of the crates, but the signatures, the rerouting orders, all signed by the same person, Colonel Benoit Sangaré. Back at his post, Traoré connected the dots. 7 outposts, 4 different regions, same pattern. Supplies missing, but all ending up unused, or diverted to priority operations that never happened. It wasn't theft, it was manipulation. Sangaré and his circle were fabricating artificial scarcity, weakening isolated units, then blaming them for poor performance, all to justify bigger budgets and funnel the excess to ghost operations they controlled. A war, manufactured on paper. Traoré was stunned, not at the corruption, but at the precision. It was military-grade deception, and no one had noticed. Or worse, no one had dared to speak. He could have gone to the press, but he knew that would be suicide. So he did something better. He started sending updates to the Office of Military Audit. Anonymous, coded, buried in logistics reports. Every week, he sent new data, each more detailed, each more damning. And then he waited. One morning, as he boiled river water for tea, a courier from Central Command arrived. Envelope, sealed, marked confidential. Inside, a single sentence. "You're not the only one watching." There was no name, no rank, just a location, a time, and a note. "Bring everything." The coordinates led him to an abandoned radio station near the edge of Ouagadougou, just outside the city, just outside the danger. Inside, two figures waited, both in plain clothes, both mid-ranking officers in military audit. One wore a scar down his cheek, the other never gave a name, but they'd read everything. And they were angry. "We knew something was wrong," the scarred one said. "But you gave us the thread to pull." Together they built the case. Quietly. No leaks. No phones. Just face-to-face meetings, typed reports, and encrypted drives. They called it Operation Black Ledger. For months they dug deeper, beyond Sangaré. They found generals who'd approved fake maneuvers, contractors who were paid for bases that didn't exist, even civilian ministers who took cuts from ghost fuel shipments. Every piece of paper, every signature, carefully preserved. But word was spreading. Something was moving in the ranks, and it wasn't subtle. One night, Traoré returned to his quarters and found his tent slit open. Nothing stolen, just his mattress carved with a single word: enough. It wasn't a warning. It was a deadline. The next day, Colonel Sangaré requested to inspect the Northern Front personally. It was a trap. Everyone knew it. But Traoré agreed, smiling. Because by then, the final piece was in place. A whistleblower inside Logistics Command. Someone close to Sangaré, who'd been sitting on recordings for months. Audio files, voices, orders, laughter, and one chilling sentence spoken by Sangaré himself. "Let them starve. Desperate soldiers are easy to control." That was it. The line. The moment the story turned, Traoré didn't go to the press. He went to the people. That night, every outpost in the northern region received a small encrypted radio transmission. Inside, the recordings, the documents, the truth. By dawn, the entire northern front was buzzing, not with rebellion, but with certainty. They'd been used, and the man who stood with them had proof. In the capital, panic set in. Sangaré doubled security, called emergency meetings, issued statements denying rumors, but it was too late. The people had heard the tapes. The troops had read the orders. And Traoré, he didn't march on the palace. He didn't call for blood. He just waited, because now the entire country was watching, and soon they'd be ready to act. They thought they could bury it with silence. Instead, it echoed. Across barracks, market stalls, radio waves, and WhatsApp chains, the story spread. Not as a rumor, but as a revelation. The voice of Colonel Sangaré, broadcast like poison peeled open. "Let them starve. Desperate soldiers are easy to control." The country didn't sleep that night. By morning, the streets of Ouagadougou were filled, but not with protesters, with silence, a heavy, chilling kind. No orders, no movements. Entire units stood still, refusing to deploy. Civilians lined sidewalks, arms crossed, eyes forward. It wasn't a coup. It was something scarier. A nation holding its breath, waiting. And then came the summons. The The military tribunal convened in full view, not behind closed doors. Cameras on. Journalists lined the back walls. 3 chairs were set for the accused, but only one man entered first. Traoré. He placed a black notebook on the desk. Then a flash drive. Then the signatures. As the audio played, the room stayed frozen. Not a cough, not a whisper, just Sangaré's voice. Then others, laughing, rerouting, mocking. Traoré didn't speak until the final file ended, and then he said simply, "They didn't fail the country, they sold it." Verdict, unanimous. Dishonorable discharge, criminal prosecution, asset seizure. Sangaré didn't beg. He didn't cry. He just looked at Traoré with the face of a man who had built an empire on silence and watched it collapse under the sound of his own voice. Weeks later, Traoré was invited to address the nation. Not as a candidate, not as a soldier, but as the man who didn't look away. He stood before the cameras holding the same black notebook and said, "I didn't come to lead. I came to serve. But when the system breaks, someone must pick up the pieces." He didn't promise miracles. He didn't offer revenge. He offered audits. He offered transparency. And he offered a line no one forgot. The first bullet against corruption is a pen. In the months that followed, the government restructured. Independent monitors, whistleblower protections, civilian oversight. But the real change wasn't policy. It was memory, because now every young officer carried a notebook, and every general knew there was always someone watching.